They promised a revolution on the water, but some dreams were left to rust until the future finally arrived.
In the summer of 1977, the USS Pegasus crossed the North Atlantic at 63 knots, 72 miles per hour, on open ocean. And the hull wasn't touching the water. A giant warship rose out of the water, not with a crane, not with magic. Two metal wings under the ship lifted all 240 tons into the air. It looked like the ocean had turned into a road. And this was real. The ship was called Pegasus. It carried real missiles. Real sailors worked on it. And yes, it could fly above the water. But Pegasus was not the first. For many years, people rode flying boats every day. They crossed rivers. They crossed harbors. They bought a ticket, got on, and watched the boat slowly rise above the waves. To them, it felt normal. Then one day, almost all of them disappeared. The boats did not break. The engines still worked. The wings still worked. So what happened? Most people think they were too expensive. That is only part of the story. The real problem was something inside the water itself, something that appears when a boat moves very fast. And even today, engineers still cannot fully beat it. 830 times. A foil 2 meters long, moving at 60 knots, generates enough force to raise a 40-ton ship completely off the ocean's surface. In the 1960s, this happened on Soviet rivers hundreds of times daily. Passengers felt the hull lift, watched the water drop away below their windows, and rode between cities at speeds never before possible on water. So if the physics are that extraordinary, what broke these machines? Why did the most efficient form of surface transport ever built quietly vanish? And why is it back? A conventional ship sits in the water. The hull displaces water and drags itself forward through constant resistance. The faster it goes, the harder the ocean pushes back. A hydrofoil changes the geometry. Beneath the hull, two submerged wings deflect water downward as the vessel moves forward. Newton's third law does the rest. The water pushes back up. Past a threshold, typically 25 to 35 knots, the lift raises the entire hull clear of the surface. At that moment, drag drops by roughly 70%. Think of running waist deep through a pool versus running on the deck beside it. The effort isn't comparable. A planing speedboat achieves a 4-to-1 lift-to-drag ratio. An advanced hydrofoil hits 25-to-1. That's a different physics category. The first person to seriously exploit this wasn't a naval architect. It was Alexander Graham Bell. In the summer of 1908, Bell was 61 and traveling through northern Italy with his engineer Casey Baldwin. On Lake Maggiore, they met Enrico Forlanini, who had spent a decade building ladder foil prototypes nobody in the English-speaking world noticed. Bell watched the demonstration. He felt the lift and became immediately obsessed. He and Baldwin went back to Nova Scotia and spent 11 years turning what they'd seen into something that could break records. On September 9, 1919, on Bras d'Or Lake in Cape Breton, their craft, the HD-4, powered by two 350-horsepower Liberty engines from World War I surplus, hit 71 miles per hour, the world marine speed record. It stood for a decade. Bell was 72. He died in 1922. The records from that day are oddly sparse. We don't know what he said when the run was over. The concept sat dormant for 3 decades while 2 world wars consumed the engineers who might have developed it. Baron Hans von Schertl, a German engineer captured by the Soviets in 1945, eventually reached Switzerland, and in 1953 launched the PT-10 Frecciadoro on Lake Maggiore, the first commercial hydrofoil service in history. The Soviets had their own man. Rostislav Alexeyev, chief designer at the Red Sermovo shipyard in Gorky, launched the Raketa in June 1957. A 420-kilometer journey down the Volga that previously consumed most of a day. The Raketa did it in 7 hours. Tickets cost 8 rubles, bus fare. The Meteor followed, then the Kometa, then the Voskhod. By the late 1970s, Alexeyev's team had put more than 400 hydrofoil vessels into service across the USSR. He won the Lenin Prize in 1962. Passengers described the Meteor as a magic carpet between cities. Smooth and fast, the water blurring past 30 centimeters below the cabin windows. The Soviet hydrofoil fleet was mass transit. It moved a nation. Everything was working. Then the physics caught up. The first sign was a vibration in the foil struts at high speeds. Engineers figured it was resonance, something manageable. They were wrong. What was happening was cavitation. When a foil moves through water fast enough, it creates dramatically reduced pressure on its upper surface. In air, low pressure is fine, but water has a phase transition. Drop the pressure enough and the water vaporizes, not from heat, from speed. The water boils at room temperature because the foil is moving too fast. Those vapor bubbles are unstable. When they collapse, each releases a microjet of water moving at 400 meters per second, directed straight into the metal surface. One bubble, harmless. 10,000 per second, every second, catastrophic. Engineers who pulled Soviet meteor foils from the water after a season described the metal as looking like buckshot damage. Pitted, cratered, material simply gone, punched away crater by collapsing vapor. The severe threshold sits around 60 knots. Below that, manageable wear. Above it, the maintenance math collapses. And in 2026, computer simulations modeling cavitating flow still disagree with physical tank tests by as much as 75%. Naval architects describe the gap, off the record, as a black art. This has been known since the 1890s. It still isn't fully solved. Cavitation was the worst problem, but it didn't arrive alone. In British Columbia's coastal waters, the biggest threat wasn't speed. It was what was in the water. Deadheads, waterlogged timber floating nearly vertical, just below the surface, invisible at 40 knots. At that speed, you cover 20 meters every second. By the time a deadhead registers, the foil has already hit it. The deceleration is comparable to a highway car crash. Engineers designed breakaway struts to detach on impact, but the vessel immediately dropped off its foils and required significant repair. Not workable for scheduled service. In 2019, off Yakushima Island in Japan, a hydrofoil struck a marine creature at speed. 84 people were injured. The foil assembly was destroyed. The route was suspended. The sea state problem was equally stubborn. Fully submerged foil systems require continuous computer correction to hold flying height. In calm water, this works. In rough conditions, foils breach the surface on wave crests and lose lift. The hull pitches hard. A Boeing jetfoil crew member working Hawaiian routes in the late 1970s described the Alenuhaha Channel in heavy weather. At nearly 50 knots, the vessel drove into a wavy face and dropped off the foils entirely. The flat-bottomed hull, designed to fly, not float, sat wallowing in 15 to 20-foot seas. Public confidence eroded faster than engineering could recover it. The U.S. Navy's Pegasus class, 6 vessels commissioned between 1977 and 1982, told the same story. Impressive, also expensive to maintain, limited in range, constantly needing repair. When the Cold War ended in 1993, the Navy decommissioned the entire class. The Coast Guard declined them. They were scrapped. Commercial operators switched to high-speed catamarans by the early 1990s. Not as fast but stable, debris-tolerant, cheaper to run. In post-Soviet states, the collapse was total. When the USSR dissolved in 1991, the subsidized infrastructure sustaining 400 hydrofoils evaporated. Most were scrapped within years. Some survived. Meteors still run from St. Petersburg to Peterhof. In 2021, the Central Design Bureau resumed production of the Meteor 120R and Valdai 45R. But most of the fleet that moved a nation is gone. Here's what nobody predicted. The problem was never the lift. The problem was what you needed to reach the speeds that made the lift dramatic. Heavy diesel engines, enormous fuel consumption. Running 600 liters of diesel per 100 kilometers on a passenger ferry never made economic sense outside subsidized systems. Electric motors changed the equation. Cavitation gets worse at higher speeds. Electric foils don't need to go as fast. The Candela P12, which entered public transit in Stockholm in 2024, cruises at 25 knots. Well below the cavitation threshold, the foils stay clean, and at 25 knots, the hull is fully foil-borne. The 70% drag reduction fully active. Energy consumption per passenger kilometer drops 80% compared to conventional diesel ferries. And here's the twist. At 25 knots, a fully submerged electric foil produces essentially zero wake. Conventional fast boats are banned from urban waterways because their wakes damage shorelines. Electric foils produce no meaningful wake. Stockholm integrated the P12 into its public network because it moves through restricted waterways at twice the legal speed. Without touching the shoreline, urban planners now develop wake budgets, formal calculations of how much wave energy a waterway can absorb. Electric hydrofoils come in well under the threshold. Conventional ferries don't. Zero wake, 80% less energy, no cavitation damage. The physics ceiling wasn't broken. It was sidestepped by running at a speed the physics can tolerate. Stockholm is already there. The Candela P12 runs scheduled commuter service, same fare as a bus. In 2024, this became ordinary. Belfast is next. Artemis Technologies has delivered its first EF-24 electric ferries, 24-meter vessels carrying 150 passengers at 34 knots with Northern Irish routes beginning in 2026. In Nizhny, Novgorod, on the same Volga bank where Alexeyev launched the first Raketa in 1957, a new Meteor 120R launched in 2024. Not a restoration, a new build. But the limits haven't moved. The square cube wall stands where it always stood. Past 400 tons, the math stops working. Large-scale freight hydrofoils remain physically impossible. Cavitation is managed, not solved. The debris problem has gotten worse, and scale remains the open question. The P12 carries 30 passengers. The EF-24 carries 150. Diesel ferries still crossing major routes carry 2,000. Alexeyev built 400 vessels in 2 decades. The electric generation has built a few dozen. The physics works. The business case is forming. But the ocean doesn't negotiate. It only responds to the math. Subscribe our channel and share with friends and family.